the connection architect. And one of the delightful things I get to do is to meet amazing people and bring their story to my network. It's something I really enjoy doing, highlighting people who are connecting with a bigger audience through increased visibility and who are making an enduring impact. And so when I met Rekha, our guest today, I was delighted to hear about the work that she's doing, which is literally about legacy building and about taking some of these moments of crisis that can derail the direction, the purpose, the strategy of a family office, and actually turning them into, into something where that doesn't happen, solving that problem very effectively with technology. So it's really going to be amazing to hear how she's done that. Rekha, welcome. It's great to see you.
Thank you, Nina, for having me here.
So brilliant to see you. Joining from Melbourne today.
Yes.
Yes. And I'm in Wellington, New Zealand. We both have sun by the look of it. So
I know, finally. It's a rare occurrence here, but yes.
yeah, very good. Very good. We're both in cities where the weather can change quite quickly. Melbourne, 4 seasons in one day. So
exactly.
We are going to talk about why estates fail at execution and at planning. We're going to hear a story from you around where you've seen that work and not work. And I'd just love to know, how did you get into solving for this family wealth challenge, this family wealth management challenge when it comes to a crisis? How did you get into doing this?
It started with a personal story, actually. I have young kids, and when we were talking about what needs to be done, what the plan should be about estate planning and all of that, what I come to realize is even with every document in place, there is no way for anyone to understand what our intentions are. Who needs to come in and take those responsibilities that we have set out, especially for our kids? And there is also no consolidated way for us to bring in all the different advisors that we have into one place, that information. So I was trying to solve a wider issue on understanding who can do what under what circumstances. And the more I looked into it, the more I was trying to solve an issue that is so close to me that it became bigger than what it set out to be.
Yes.
And so once I had something in place, I started talking to family wealth officers, family officers and wealth management officers, and also a lot of governance officers and succession planners. One thing that everyone agrees to is, yes, we have documentation. Yes, we have everything that's needed for families to move. When something happens, someone else takes over. But everything is, again, consolidated within one person, whoever has made those decisions,
Yes.
whoever has drawn those decisions up. And when that moment hits, everyone is looking for answers. No one knows who needs to actually do what. And when crisis hits, no one is asking, what's in the documentation. They're literally asking, what do we do now?
Yeah.
Who is going to take care of us? And even if the next in line knows that, okay, I'm the one who needs to step in, they don't know right now what decisions need to be made. And the more I spoke, the more I've looked for a solution, the more I have had conversations. This is a gap that I've seen. So I built something to solve that gap and something to provide for the families and the advisors, an infrastructure layer that actually works the way life does, instead of it being a static document storage wall like we have many.
Yeah, interesting. And because you have talked about the difference between planning and activation. So it's not that people aren't aware of the problem or that they don't put, as you said, documents in place. There's some planning that happens,
Exactly.
but it's activation. So what do you mean by that? Can you take us through a family story that shows what happens when activation goes wrong?
So one of the stories that stayed with me is when I spoke to a client of mine. They had all the documentation in place. They had their succession planning, estate planning, very detailed, in a very detailed manner. They
Mm,
also had their wealth managers and they had a few advisors. But
mm,
when the moment hit, they didn't know who needed to do what, the right instructions that were needed. For example, it was a health crisis and they didn't know where the insurance documents were, or and also who they needed to call and contact first. But what Eternal Vaults does is it, let's say now the same trigger if in case of an emergency, now taking that, mapping that into Eternal Vaults, the person who needs to make those decisions is already aware that they are the ones who needs to trigger that event when that moment arrives. They trigger the moment. Then here what happens is something really interesting. They don't get every document that is stored in the vault. They get only the documents needed to take care of the situation at hand right now. So an emergency is generally for health, or you're stuck somewhere, or operations need to move and the main person isn't there. But
mm,
now someone knows, okay, in case of an emergency, I know I need to go trigger that event for me to get the instructions I need to carry out the actions that are required in this moment. So that is the difference between planning and activation.
mm.
Activation carries out the plans that you have in a very sure manner, in a binary way, because you're not guessing anymore. You're moving in clarity rather than assumption.
So it sounds like it sounds amazing. And then also that there's a risk that the person may not trigger the event and possibly that they may not be accountable for what they should do when the event happens. So I know you've solved for that as well. So what are your thoughts on that, and how do you address that?
So when the that's a very good question, because that's how life is. When
Mm,
you are dealing with crisis, you are just dealing with that. You need space to do that, which is why we have other different triggers where other family members can actually trigger those events. But to there's also a unfortunately a very high likelihood for abuse, where informational abuse. And to prevent that, we made sure that there isn't a single actor at any given time. So let's say there are two other family members who don't have emergency access, but your mandate when you have onboarded onto the portal says first you need to trigger emergency access. All of this is logged. In that scenario, the advisor also steps in, and now you have different people actually waiting for the emergency documents or instructions to activate, because you're like, okay, you realize that someone else needs to act because the main person who
mhm.
needs to is unavailable mentally or any other capacity. And the rest of the family members, okay, we need to make sure that we are triggering this. So there are different ways for them to actually go through the trigger events.
So there's accountability, and it sounds like
Exactly.
the
There's
right
always
information.
logs. Yeah,
Yeah, and information goes to the person who needs it, and then there are people around who know that that person has got that information, or they have some layer of information themselves that helps them to get insight into what should be happening, I guess.
exactly. Absolutely. That is.
Mm, mm. Yeah, so interesting that you've used technology to solve for this. So, what do you find in terms of adjusting the plan? So, families often evolve their strategy, their vision, and and then there can be the challenge not only that visions evolve, but also that some family members aren't necessarily on board with that vision. Could be sibling rivalry. There could be tensions. There's a whole family dynamics piece that goes on there. And so, how I guess I might be conflating two issues around the family dynamics and then the evolving strategy and vision. Um, how do you solve for these problems?
So to answer the first one around how do we solve, evolving documentation,
Mm,
that is precisely what Eternal Vaults is built for. It is not a static document storage vault that exists right now. There are, as an advisor or as an estate planner, let's say I'm working with a family, you have updated your will, you have updated your estate planning and succession planning and wishes and mission. Now, the advisor or the estate planner needs to go back and update all of this information onto the portal, and the principal is able to now view, saying that, okay, this is what we have agreed upon, this is these now we have, put it on to eternal walls. Now it's for everyone to see. So it is all out in the open. Do what you will with that information, but now you have information that is visible exactly the way you have planned. And
Mhm.
visibility is just the one part. Now it also activates in the same scenarios that you have right now adjusted. Let's say there is someone has bought a new house and now that's not in their will. But what you can actually do here is you can actually add it in eternal walls to say, I've purchased a new house, and you can ping your advisor to say we need to update this. And now there is a defensible log on both sides to say that I have triggered that action and you have acknowledged it. And the same goes for the advisors. They're like, I've updated this, can you please acknowledge? So now when the moment arrives, no one is saying, did you send me this, did you do that, did you?
Because it's in someone else's email, it's
Exactly.
with their password locked, so you can't see what they received or didn't. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so that is one part of it. Now, the
Mm.
other side is the family dynamics, the
Mm.
rivalry, or, because this is very much possible. And we've
Mm.
seen that one too many times, unfortunately.
Mm.
And there are two parts of preparing the family and the successes. One is the development side, the personal development, and the other is the operational readiness. So both are different, but both need to work together.
Mm.
What we solved is for the operational continuity, operational readiness. When the information changes, you update everything along with your documentation. Now you have a view for discussions, you have your view for disagreements, you have a view to say what doesn't work for you, you have everything logged in a way that makes sense for the families when they are looking at it, and also the same for the advisors. The whole point is to have a view so everyone knows where they should jump in when the moment arrives, and to understand who can act under what circumstances. But
Mm.
when it comes to the personal development, the personal readiness, you still need to work on yourself. There is no amount
Yes.
of systems that will resolve personal issues,
Family
family
dynamics.
dynamics.
Yeah.
What we can do is give you a platform to at least raise those issues,
Mm.
or show where someone needs to jump in with clarity rather than guessing when the moment arrives. So
Yeah,
that is
nice.
what this solves in the background, to say, okay, there is going to be a possibility here for me to jump in when something were to happen. So that is what we solve.
So, and it's amazing how you've combined the information provision with the accountability, uh, and I guess related to that information, the transparency levels that are right for
Yeah.
the decision making responsibility that people have. So, yeah, I think that it's a fascinating structure, and you've called it infrastructure. And so, tell us the difference between why it's infrastructure in your mind rather than software.
It's infrastructure because it works the way a family or any entity using it really needs. So you are only accessing the parts that are needed for your situation, and it is not another SaaS tool or another somewhere where you just go and sign up. It is something that you need or you don't, and you would know that very evidently when you are looking at the situation at hand.
Mm.
And that is why it's an infrastructure. It grows and moves along with you, rather than come rather than you are trying to bend your views and how you work to the whole platform.
Mm. So there's a lot of flexibility to adjust things like visibility and roles and trigger events. But
Exactly. Yes, exactly. So
mm,
they've added the workflows or, the logic behind what the
mm,
triggers do or when they need to activate. But
mhm.
it is up to the families and advisors for them to decide what needs to go in, who needs to act. Those decisions are still human. They need to be human. You can't have something that's deterministic in a way that doesn't make sense because it's a machine. How would it know your family dynamics? How would it know how your family and advisors work together? So
Yeah.
that part is still very much human. It has to be. But what we do is remove a layer and give you a visibility across different sections and different.
Yeah, amazing. And so are you seeing people respond to this and see that it makes sense and want to take it further?
So we do have some families who are already using this because
Mm,
right now their architecture that they have, or the structures that they have within has gotten really complex for them to manage as themselves. And as wealth grows, as you are moving across jurisdictions, as you have families in different stages of life, you need something that is coherent
mm,
to generations, and you need something that actually works with your family rather than you work along its constraints. Definitely it needs to have certain boundaries, which is what we believe we do really well,
mhm,
understand so that people know who can step in where and what and where
mhm,
it stops, most
mhm,
importantly. But we are also the problem is so prevalent that everyone agrees that it is an issue.
mm,
They've also worked out probably a workaround in a way, again with more documentation and meetings, but it is again more of people's time. You're spending more of your energy where you
mm,
need space to deal with life rather than
mm,
have more meetings, go back and check who gets what documentation, who needs to do what, and you will still have a lot of information lost in transit.
yeah.
And that is something that people are seeing more and more of. And now the conversations around, we do need something more than just documentation. We do need something that works with the family
Mm, mm,
more, differentiate the offerings that you have for the families that you're already serving by making sure that there is an infrastructure that works on both sides, just not for one person of the family, but for the whole family, just not for the advisor, but for the advisor and the family. So there are different layers to it.
mm,
People are seeing, they are pretty open to the idea, but again, when it comes to succession planning, estate planning, people do get a bit like, okay, I don't want to think about it now. But because you're not thinking about it doesn't mean it's gone.
yeah.
So it is there is a lot of educating that needs to happen, which is going towards the right direction. But the people have seen it, they recognize it immediately, and those
Mm.
are the ones that we are working with.
Yeah, brilliant. It's very exciting. And for you, you came from a background in software programming, and then fascinatingly, you have a master's in English literature. And so you, oh, did you lose me for a second?
I did.
Yes, it just glitched. Um, so you combine this background in English literature with software programming, and now you're taking this message to a much larger audience. So I'd love to hear from your point of view what has helped you to push through and to find that visibility. To be ready to take your message beyond being an employee in a company to a broader stage, a wider stage.
I've never set out initially to be, building something that everyone would use. It started with a very personal problem.
Mm,
And I call myself a lifelong learner because I am fascinated with everything that happens around. And literature and philosophy gave me that foundation, I believe.
mm,
Um, but when I wanted to find what really suits me as a person, software development seemed more exciting when I picked it up. And that was something that kept me up all night in a very exciting way. And yes, so I stumbled into it and then I learned, and now I've been in this for a decade. And I worked a lot in wealth and fintech. And for me to solve a problem that actually gave me the foundation and the systems that I need,
Mm,
my personal a personal problem that a lot more actually require in their lives, that has something, again, I won't say completely stumbled upon, but in a way, yes, because I was solving something that was very personal.
mm,
um, and right now, the visibility side, I've been very comfortable building in the background. But when it comes to talking about myself, it has always been a bit uncomfortable, to be very honest. But I am very comfortable when it comes to systems. If I need to talk about them, if I need to talk about the mechanics of things, and when it comes to structures, I am completely at home. But when it comes to talking about myself, or what I have been doing, the struggles and all of that, that is still a bit of, I need a bit of push for myself to say that I am doing this because I know that I'm solving an issue, and I need to, the right people do need to hear. And that requires a bit of inner work for me to go and talk to the people that see the problem right now and need a solution for it. So that's what has given me a bit of courage. And yes, it takes everyday courage for me to do that.
amazing. I love how you come back to when you see that this solves a problem for people. It sounds like that's what motivates you to want to get out and to share it. And I know that you have been sharing more of your story, your insights, your thoughts, and more personal perspectives through your writing. So that's great and fascinating for me just to hear that. And I think people gravitate to different modes depending on what really suits them. It makes sense that you've got this English literature background, um, and then that's where writing has really served a purpose for you.
Absolutely. Yeah, that is also a passion of mine. So it's combining two different things together. So
Yeah. And tell me, what about we talked a little bit about visual brand, and you had quite a strong interest in your visual brand and that the role that that can have in terms of connecting. So what are your thoughts on that? How does the way we turn up online, the way people see us, this visual brand image that people encounter when they meet us, how does that help you connect with your audience?
um for me, I always believe in, obviously, being authentic. But when it comes to the visual brand of myself, and also when I'm for Eternal Walls, it needed to be an extension in a way of who I am with what I'm putting out there. Um, I don't like flashy and loud. And for me, when it comes to my personal appearance, that is what I gravitate towards. I like being understated, but quality of it needs to have a certain quality and feel when I'm wearing something, or when even, let's say, when I have certain jewelry, I won't wear it for the sake of it, but I need to feel that it fits seamlessly. It has to work with me rather than me going through the discomfort, or just for the sake of it.
Mm, mm,
That is some so I'm very deliberate when it comes to how I present myself. And it's the same thing when it comes to Eternal Walls. It's just because I can have certain visuals doesn't mean I'll just go and add them there. The the difference between capability and requirement is something that I really strive for. It has to make sense for me to put out there, be it myself or be it something
mm,
that I'm working with.
mm. Yeah, it's so interesting, isn't it? How these visual cues, they are things we make decisions around, and I think sometimes people think that shouldn't be important. So I often hear people say, "Oh, that shouldn't be important," and just because we're talking about it now doesn't mean that it's more important than it, than what you do or the problem that you solve. Uh, at the same time, I often connect with this subtle communication that we're doing through visuals that helps our audience to to learn different things about us, and then helps us to think in a certain way, you know, to be in a certain mode. Um, and so, yeah, I hear that in what you're saying, that those are decisions that you make, that you're very deliberate about those.
I am, yes.
Yeah,
It's really important in a way that it should be me. It shouldn't just
yes,
because I'm solving a problem, I should ignore the way I present myself, because that is taking care of yourself
yeah,
is
absolutely, right? You
equally
want to
important.
be the best person you can be when you're running a business. You're turning up and feeling connected to ourselves is,
Yeah.
you know, one of the most powerful things we can do. And so, is there anything else in terms of your mindset or your model or an example that you have looked to in terms of how you've made decisions to increase the amount that you share with people, the amount of visibility you have, and to take your message to wider audiences? Anyone that you've looked to, or any thoughts that have helped to inform you?
Yeah, the whole point is I'm not chasing visibility because, I want to be an influencer, let's say. That is not what I'm chasing. For me, the reason I'm out there talking more or writing more is because I believe in the problem I'm solving, and I want the right people to know that there is a solution that exists.
Mm.
And if I don't put myself out there, no one will know.
Yeah.
Um, and it does take everyday courage, or, the more I do something, obviously, the more comfortable I get into it, but the more I want to be visible out there, the more I need to overcome. And which is fine for me, because I know that growth does exist in your most vulnerable parts. And if you want to do something, staying there just because it's comfortable doesn't make sense after a certain stage. And I believe I'm at that stage now where I want to be in front of the right people. And that is the mindset that I had to internally shift, and I still do every day, because I am putting myself into situations where I wouldn't have probably a year ago, because it didn't make sense for me then. But now I know that the right people need to know that you exist for them to understand what you're solving,
Yeah.
for them to know that you exist. It's not only about that. They need to see that you actually believe in the problem you're solving. There needs to be a certain trust that needs to happen, and it won't happen from a place of inauthenticity.
Mm. So good. You and your work remind me of a quote from John Maxwell, who said, "Legacy is created only when a person puts his organization into the position to do great things without him or her," I guess he may have said. So, yeah, that sense that things are going to continue after you, and helping the family office to get through a crisis moment so that that work and that legacy can continue is really significant work. So congratulations to you. I think it's amazing what you've established, and sure there are many great years ahead. And so, how can people reach you? What's the best step for people to take to continue a conversation? Reach out to you on LinkedIn, or what's the best way to find you?
Yeah, I am very active on LinkedIn, so that
Mhm,
is really the best place to reach me. Or go to Eternal Waltz, and
mhm.
that you can find my details over there. And
Nice,
every email that comes to us is looked by me first, so
nice.
I'll make sure that I'm the one replying. And if everything that I've said so far resonates, and if that's a problem that people are looking to solve or want to talk more about how we work or how it looks, or just to have a chat, I would welcome that.
Amazing. Thanks, Rekha, for joining us and sharing so openly from your experience, and bringing us into the journey of Return of Vaults and where you've got to and what you're bringing. So it's lovely to connect. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Nina, for making the time, and for being a lovely host and throughout, to be honest. Appreciate it.
So lovely to connect. It's wonderful we've been able to do this. Amazing.
Absolutely. Thank you so much.